We are back with another banger, team. Now, the reason most online coaches never grow their business is because they're focused on the wrong thing. They think they need more leads, when in fact what they really need is the thing that no one ever talks about, which is the key to scaling a successful online coaching business. And that thing is how to actually get world-class results for your clients. When I first started in the industry, having status and a badge of honor came from being undeniably great at what you do and by showcasing that through client results. Now, coaches are trying to skip that part to build the business that can only rightfully be yours by actually putting in the work and getting great client results in the first place. And that's exactly what we're going to cover today in this video. So welcome to part 3 in a 6-part mini-series where I'm sharing with you the lessons that I've learned from building my business from 0 to over 30k per month in 6 months without funnels, without cold outreach, without relying on having to go viral, and without having my diary stacked with sales calls every single day. Now, if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, where we cover our unique simplified scaling model and our offer design process, I want to make sure that you've got a crystal clear understanding of how this model works. So you can check them here somewhere, or I'll put a link in the description below. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a highly leveraged and highly profitable hybrid delivery model, just like I did in my own coaching business back in the day. And I've also replicated in both businesses since, where both have scaled to over 6 figures in cash collected in just a matter of months. So let's dive in. So here's the deal. Coaches want to charge high ticket prices without a high ticket product. Now, let me explain for a second. High ticket pricing and how you price what it is that you sell to people should be based on, yes, the market averages of what your competitors charge, but also your confidence in your competence. So your skill, the investments that you made into yourself. People want to start charging ridiculous amounts of money without proof and without actually reinvesting any of that money, not only into the business, but also into their product department. Because whenever I speak to coaches most of the time and they say, oh, I've invested 5 figures into my business and into being a better coach, they just talk about business mentorships. Now, business mentorships in this day and age do not teach you to be a better coach. That is why Built for Coaches was created, because we brought together Built for Business and Built to Coach, 2 proven systems that help coaches scale their business and also have a process-driven, outcome-focused system in place with their delivery that allowed them to keep more of the money that they made and pretty much guarantee results for any person in any niche that they welcomed into their coaching program. So we teach something called the hybrid coach approach. And this is why this is so goddamn important to understand, because coaching isn't really conducted inside of the health and fitness industry. It's mainly mentoring and it's mainly teaching. So teaching is helping someone understand things that they are not aware of when it comes to education, and how to fill gaps so people best understand how to piece information together to know how things work. Whereas mentoring is telling someone how it's worked for you or how it's worked for other clients. Now, coaching is where you guide people. Coaching is guiding people towards their own outcomes, because the brain that contains the problem also contains the solution. So if you've ever had clients, which you most definitely will have, that just won't do anything that you ask of them, doesn't matter how many times you wrap up the same information in different ways, or you try and learn more information to give to them, they just won't take action. They're maybe just not being adherent. And that's because once mentoring and teaching fails, there needs to be a backup, and that is coaching. But coaching is not well understood inside of the health and fitness industry. Everyone calls themselves a coach, but they're not actually coaches. Because coaches in the professional sense, in the real world, because sometimes the fitness industry doesn't always feel like the real world, is seen in a far different light. It's something that's taken incredibly seriously. It's why professional coaches can help CEOs that have 9-figure portfolios and teams of 5,000, just like Jen did, overcome huge issues around budgeting, around unforeseen circumstances that crop up in corporations where things are going to be leaked to the press and they're going to have a fucking field day about it. This is where coaching truly is transformational, if you know how to focus on it appropriately. And the reason why we focus on the hybrid coach approach is when people invest in you in the health and fitness industry, you can't just be a coach all of the time, right? If someone doesn't know how to track their calories in MyFitnessPal and they ask you, you're not going to try and help them figure it out on their own because they genuinely don't have the education, right? You're going to say, this is what you do, this is where you go, this is where you can find more information, here's a step-by-step process, and they're going to go, great, brilliant, I know exactly how to do it now. you're not going to coach in that capacity. So that's where teaching is important or mentoring is important, but you need to have something to fall back on. And the belief that high ticket clients will stick to the plan is bullshit, right? Because as I was saying in the last video, we've got people who go through the process of change, right? When they're trying to achieve physical transformations, they go through a process of change, which we refer to as the trans-theoretical model of change from a psychological standpoint. So people paying a specific amount of money does not change where they are in that process, which again is something I'm going to talk about in even more depth in videos to come, because I'm going to show you exactly why some of these people who have came into your business, even if they have paid high ticket, haven't actually got the result, haven't done the work. So there's two types of investments: stretch investments and stress investments. And depending on where someone is in this trans-theoretical model of change, they could also feel like investing is actually something that brings them more stress. So it creates an inability to learn, to digest information, to take things on board, because they're just solely focused on, I need to make a return on this, that they actually miss all of the key steps and components to get the result in the first place. And then you've also got stretch investments. So stretch investments are actually where people know, yes, I've only got X amount in my bank account. I don't care. I will pay you this money and I will make this work. I will do anything that I need to at all costs to achieve this outcome, because I know that I can back myself and trust myself. So there's two different types here. And it's important that when it comes to the hybrid coach approach, and you know how to default between coach, mentor, and also teacher, that you feel confident enough to read between the lines with what sort of investment someone is about to make. Is it going to be a stress investment where they're not going to really be open to being coached because of how they feel and what they're going through psychologically? Or is it going to be a stretch investment where they're like, I don't care. I've only got this much in my bank account. I spent every last penny on working with you. I'm going to make this work. But as we've already kind of discussed in this series so far, you need to have a process that makes the people coming to you better clients. And what I mean by better is that they're just ready to be coached. So this is something that we have to remember and we always have to stay on top of. But this is where the business model that we create and help you create includes that hybrid coach approach. The old way was that there was like this really complex kind of like suite of products and services offered, where people would more than likely do a few different things. So they would have a non-directive approach where they basically maybe coached but didn't give you the other things that you needed as part of it, like the mentoring, the teaching, because good coaches build great coaching instincts and intuition, right? Coaching instincts and your intuition as a coach are your greatest superpowers. But that only can be built through trial and error and failure and not being scared to get things wrong. So that is why, in many cases, coaches are like crippled with fear to remove themselves emotionally from the process of coaching their clients and coach effectively in such a way where the responsibility is back on the client, because the coach thinks that they need to be on top of everything the client does in order for the result to take place. But the change actually happens in people's brains when they're not talking to you. So you need to give them space, and valuable conversations are only valuable at the point in which they need to be. So if you're trying to add value but it's not necessary, you can actually just be sending people down completely different tracks and ways of thinking, because you're following up too much and you're trying to add value because you're actually just trying to feel safe and secure within yourself. Because if you're not part of the step-by-step process that takes place when people change their behaviours and you're not in control of that, it can be hard to feel that there's certainty around the fact that someone's going to achieve a result. But that's the beauty of it. When you start to see the impact of your coaching and your hybrid coach approach over time, you are then in a position to say, do you know what? I was actually less emotionally volatile and involved with those clients. They got better results. They're saying better things about the service. They are telling me things that I've never heard from clients before about how transformational this process has been. That is where your mind will start to create new predictive loops and new maps to say this way could work versus this other way. Because you shouldn't be emotionally tied up in your client's business, right? You shouldn't. And when I mean business, I just mean everything in their life, not their physical business. So the old way was that there would be separate services for everything that people needed, whereas the new way is everything included in a hybrid approach, right? Coaching, mentoring, teaching, rather than it just being one or the other. Because there will be times where you'll need to give goal-orientated support, client-centered approaches, holistic development, specialized expertise, solution-focused conversations. You'll need to have problem-solving expertise where it's not a case of you've not paid for this, but actually, and you don't get it, right, with the complex menu of how things were done before, but actually it's more of a case now where people pay for everything and then you fall into the bracket of who you need to be for each individual person based upon their desired needs at any given point. Because when people go through the trans-theoretical model of change and their brain changes in the process of transformation, what you have to take into consideration is that there will be more coaching elements needed at different points and different phases. There's going to be different mentoring approaches needed at different phases. There's going to be different teaching approaches needed at different phases. So you're never going to be always doing more of one versus the other at every single stage. It's more so where they are in that process of change will dictate what that person needs most. But this is where this approach is so important, and having a system to your delivery is so important, because we actually help our coaches build out an entire system and a process to coach their clients so that they can actually measure them on their competencies when they come on board, both physically and psychologically, in such a way that allows the coach to then say, this is where this person is at this stage of change. And then we provide all of the tools that each coach needs to support each client depending on the stage that they're at, so that they can move them through that trans-theoretical model of change to a place of maintenance. So if you don't have processes, if you don't have systems, if you don't have checklists, your business is doomed to fail. This is why you don't feel certain in the outcomes that you're trying to help your clients achieve, because training plans, nutrition plans, done for you assets, or even check-ins aren't really a process. And it's not giving someone the very thing that they need, which is that level of skill development that's required to be able to do this sustainably long term. Now, this is where we help our coaches build their access stack, because the access stack is a very simplified business model. Now, you might have been part of mentorships before where you've basically paid a certain amount of money to be in a specific tier based upon what you can afford. So they might have a lowest tier, they might have a mid tier, and then they might have a higher tier. And usually what tends to happen is they'll say that this high tier is like application only and you get more time with the founder, but that's not really the case. What we've heard is that people just pay more for sometimes an even more diluted level of service in comparison to their middle tier, because that's where the majority of coaches are. And actually the service isn't as good at that top tier, but they're paying way more per month and even up front for God knows what. So the access stack is something that we run, where people can choose between synchronous and asynchronous coaching, which is basically where people can pay more to have a synchronous one-on-one time with me and Jen every single month, which is limited to 20 spaces because we've only got so much time, or asynchronous, which is they don't care when they get a response or where they get a response, just as long as we get back to them same day, which is exactly what we do. But we give every single coach, regardless of what level they choose to work with us in, which is basically just, are you wanting to pay for more of our time or less of our time? It's as simple as that. They get the exact same roadmap to building their business. The people paying more for our time don't get added bonuses or features, because that's actually very unfair. So we help you do the same with your clients, because you might have been told to create these tier systems the same way, but it feels confusing and complex, and it doesn't feel right giving people that you work with different things when really you should give them the same thing, the same process. But again, people can choose whether or not they want to pay for more or less of your time. And this is where you should have free access tiers, and then obviously paid access tiers depending on the synchronous or asynchronous coaching that you want to develop. And this is where you can actually build a highly leveraged delivery model in such a way that allows you to not get capped at a certain number of clients, because naturally people will choose what they think fits best, which is either synchronous or asynchronous coaching. And this is where you do have to have a process. So our process when it comes to Built for Coaches is helping you move through particular levels based upon the framework that we've created and the roadmap that we've created for what coaches need at each stage of their business building process. So when people come inside of Built for Coaches, when coaches join, we essentially take them through a process where they solve a problem at a time at each particular level. And it's made up of multiple different levels, and each level has different themes, has different checklists, has implementation stations, and also has tests that you have to take at the end. And it's not student and kind of teacher dynamic type of thing where we tell you off if you got the wrong answer. It's more so that we want to make sure that you're competent and you're learning and you're taking everything on board and you're digesting it appropriately, so that when these things get submitted at the end, based upon what you've learned throughout that entire process, and this is all micro education focused, so it's digestible, we can actually say, okay, this person has understood X, they've implemented Y, and they're now ready to move on to the next stage of building their business. So we then have to physically unlock the next level for people to move through, and we will not do that if we don't feel like someone is ready for it. So this is actually where, again, you can be in control of your client's journey, and our education is fully focused around where coaches find themselves in each stage. And that is why having a process is so goddamn important, because again, coaches will ask me all the time, do you actually have a process that allows me to know exactly what to focus on when it comes to building my business? Yes. Why would we not? We're not just going to give you a ton of videos that have been recycled from live webinars that are 90 minutes long and make up about 60 hours worth of education that you have to sit and listen to and watch through for that one nugget of gold that you need just because it feels valuable. We deliver this micro education process in such a way where it builds your business literally from the ground up with our support outside of it. And this is where the levels come into play. So I really want you to consider thinking how you do the same for yourself. And as I said before, simple scales, bullshit fails. That is something to always keep in mind. That's why our process, we call it our one simple system, because it is genuinely so simple. People know exactly what they need to do, where they need to go, how to get support, how to ask questions. It doesn't need to be more complex than that. And you should be asking yourself the question right now, is my business complex? Do my clients know exactly where to go? Is it clear for help, for support, for education, to learn about X, Y, and Z? Because all of these people that you see here are a byproduct of going through this system. And yes, Aidan made 19 sales in 7 weeks, which, to be perfectly honest, is way more now. We're now 10 weeks in at the point in which I'm recording this, and he's around the mid-20s. Paddy was the same, 22 sales in 7 weeks. We're actually now at 10 weeks, and that's now 32 sales. Kuba increased his MRR by 40% in 3 months. Soraya, when we first started working together, hit a £6,000 new sales month in February. And then come March, had made 11.5k, which was a record month and a record week of booked calls in the process. Connor's averaged an extra 4k per month every single month since joining. Christian made 18.9k in 8 weeks. Alex closed 17k worth of new deals in 11 weeks. And all of them say the same thing. I've been in other programs, other mentorships, I've invested in help elsewhere, and ultimately nothing has ever been as clear as this. The support's never been as good as this. And it's because not just that we take pride in what we do, but it's also because we actually have a process for people to follow rather than it being random. And we've designed it in such a way that allows us to scale without diluting the quality of our product and support, so that people can get exactly what they need, know exactly what to focus on, know exactly where they need to go to focus on the next thing that they need to be doing, what the pipeline looks like for what they're actually building, and gives them very clear instructions on how to do that with our support outside of it. So this model has helped us scale very, very rapidly. It's something that I used previously that helped me scale when I was working a lot of hours per week, not only in my own business, but also for another fitness business mentorship company. And it's something that I will live and breathe by, because if you make decisions now based off of where you are right now and then become bottlenecked in the business, you make it so much harder for yourself to make changes further down the line. So you always need to be operating from a place of vision and understanding around what the long-term goal is and making decisions for that, not for where you are right now in the present. Okay, if you found any of this valuable, please make sure you've hit the like button and subscribe for the next one. But I've actually got a gift for you for staying to the end. We have a free school community for coaches where we host our mini course, Built to Scale, that talks about this stuff in even more depth and detail. Now, this is usually a paid course, but if you click the link in the description below and DM me in school once you've been accepted with the private password BANANA, then I'll unlock it for you for free as a thank you. You'll find the link down below in the description, and in the next one, it's time to have some fun, where I'm going to be sharing with you our one simple marketing blueprint that I've used to take on 50 clients organically over the past few months, and how I've automated lead generation with a secret automation that's helped me convert leads month after month. So click the video somewhere up here and go watch the next one when it's out, and make sure that you've subscribed and turned on notifications, because you do not want to miss this. Right, that was quality. See you in the next one.